For most people in the southeast Queensland, life is finally returning to normal in the wake of ex-Cyclone Alfred. However, almost 100,000 properties are still without power tonight. After days of havoc, heavy rain and river levels are now beginning to ease and all emergency alerts have been cancelled. Overnight, Ipswich avoided significant flooding. Those in the path of floodwaters are cleaning up and salvaging what they can. Now, the Army has joined clean-up efforts in Hervey Bay, assisting 1,600 properties on the Gold Coast. The race is on to return the beaches to a pristine state ahead of the Easter school holidays. We have reporters across the affected areas, but we start tonight with Emma Pollard.
The Bremer River may have peaked below the feared flood level, but not all homes were spared.
I'm sick of crying at the moment. Every time I open another door, it's just gutting.
This was their property west of Ipswich yesterday, engulfed by water. They run a charity, but for a second time, they've become the ones in need.
We lost about 50 grand's worth of gear in 22, but now this one's going to be just as bad. We'll just clean up and rebuild and start over again.
The threat of heavy rainfall is disappearing, and with that comes the step from response towards recovery.
The ferocity of the floodwater that struck Laidley in the Lockyer Valley yesterday means a big clean-up ahead. All ages are pitching in.
Everyone's here to lend a hand.
The Army rolled into Hervey Bay.
I may require assistance to clean these properties out.
Where up to 1,600 properties have sustained damage.
Lots of water in basements, so we've done a lot of pump outs of those sort of things. Washing out of houses, I think probably got about 15 on the book so far, and there's a lot of jobs coming in.
Mohammed Al-Rakabi's store at flood-hit Logan, south of Brisbane, has been stripped of staples.
Your milk, your bread and your eggs, that's been our biggest challenge.
His weary customers also hit hard by outages. More than 500 properties here at Logan Village could be without electricity until Sunday.
It was more the aftermath, I think, than what it is the cyclone itself.
Ken and Pauline Coomber haven't had phone or internet services for 4 days.
Just nothing.
Pauline's elderly mother was worried about them during the flood emergency.
I kept trying to send her text messages.
The rain lifted for students still not back at almost 200 schools, hopefully to return tomorrow. What set this cyclone apart was the major population centre in its path. Queensland has suffered its worst ever power outages from a natural disaster, a record number of calls for help to the SES and major disruptions to daily life. Millions of people will remember the week Tropical Cyclone Alfred strayed into the southeast. Emma Pollard, ABC News.
For the latest on the dams in the southeast, we cross live to state political reporter Jack Mackay. Now, Jack, releases have just begun at Wivenhoe Dam. Should residents be concerned at all?
Well, Lexi, these releases started just a couple of hours ago. SEQ Water says this is necessary to prepare Wivenhoe in case there are any significant future rainfall events. The dam operator had planned to release this water as the peaks of the Bremer River and Lockyer Creek had receded. But most importantly, they're not expecting this to cause any flooding in the lower Brisbane River. Here's more of what SEQ Water said today.
We will aim to be putting that water in so that it's lower than any minor flooding level that is seen in the creeks, and we will do that for a period of time to allow the Wivenhoe Dam to go back to its normal operating level.
Beyond Wivenhoe, the gates of Somerset Dam and North Pine are still open, but that is expected to wrap up in the coming days. 20 of 23 ungated dams were also still spilling water today, although that's already started to recede. Lexi.
All right, Jack, thanks for that update. The worst of the weather may have passed, but Queenslanders are still grappling with the damage ex-tropical cyclone Alfred wrought on the southeast. Those in the floodwaters path are cleaning up and they're salvaging what they can.
After his Woolloongabba rental flooded in 2022, Bowen Harding thought he was prepared.
Because we had warning, I was able to put all of my stuff on this table.
But the water came higher and faster than expected.
The oven, it went under, so we'll probably have to get rid of that.
Many of his possessions are now on the curb. His unit temporarily unlivable.
It's just exhausting, because it's so much work to do.
We've lost another load of our tenant and our friend's stuff, and it's going to cost us about $300,000 to raise the house, which is pretty depressing.
The city has a lot of big questions to answer about making sure we can protect areas like this in the future.
Flood damaged piles are a common sight across Brisbane.
We're giving people this weekend the opportunity to put flood damage items out on their curbside in those flood affected areas, and we'll be starting the collection of those items on Monday.
Nearly 100,000 people remain without power across southeast Queensland. Some have been out for days.
Managing, really, just managing. It's a bit tough with the 18-month-old.
The outages have been a nightmare for many businesses.
Our business relies on sales, and it doesn't exist at the moment. There's just going to be no sales made here potentially for 2 weeks.
The Premier says grants will be made available.
We are determined to make sure that people get the assistance they need to get life back for them and their family.
Cyclone Alfred's impact is being felt across the state. These empty shelves are in Townsville. Major supermarkets are confident impacted supply chains will be back in the coming days. In further signs things are returning to normal,
I thought we were going to get another day off, so I was not prepared, and I was sleeping in and everything.
Hundreds of schools that were closed have now reopened, including this one on the Sunshine Coast.
Yes, definitely good to see school back on. Yes, get a break, so it's been nice today. Nice and relaxing.
288 public and private schools remain closed today, the majority in Brisbane and on the Gold Coast. The state government says schools will be individually assessed to see if it's safe to reopen, and parents will be notified the evening before. Liz Gwynn, ABC News, Brisbane.